For confirmation. People will be joining us, no doubt, and here we go. Yeah, okay, very good. Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining on such a short notice. There is a pretty strong agenda, obviously 6 points. When Mark suggested this agenda last week, we knew only about those things, so no doubt there will be subtitles and subheadings and so on and so forth. I do gathered some information. Meantime, obviously, we had another meeting, or we had two meetings among NGOs, and there is a big meeting today at 1600 UK time regarding what we discuss here and intertankers, intercargos of this world, discussing among them, their members. So there is a coordination going on. We are working very, very closely with all stakeholders. That's, I believe, as a beginning, that's all from me. I would like to hand over to Mark. Mark, over to you, and I'll mute myself, and I'll be chairing.
I lost you for a moment there. Kuba, are you?
Yeah, Kuba, we can hear you.
Kuba.
Well, Kuba mentioned earlier that internet seemed to be slow where he is. So that would be the reason.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now, Kuba. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Alex, I got your phone call. I'm muting myself. Mark, go ahead, please.
Okay, look, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, it's not any necessary fixed agenda. Firstly, I think it's only right to start this meeting expressing our sympathy and solidarity with our Ukrainian colleagues and seafarers. Also, I have to say, our Russian seafarers and colleagues who found themselves caught up in a situation not of their intention of making. And I think this is something that we sometimes can forget. There are, of course, the Ukrainians are right in the heart of this, but also there are a lot of Russian colleagues and seafarers who feel very uncertain, very anxious, very ashamed in a lot of cases. So I think there's a huge mix here, but our sympathies go to the awful situation unfolding on the ground in Ukraine, to our Ukrainian seafarers and their families, and our Ukrainian colleagues. Of course, I think I speak for everyone on that. Soon as this crisis broke, which I think took us all a little bit by surprise, because I certainly, with my sort of ex-army experience, thought this was more of a bluff than a real intention, because I didn't think this sort of thing could happen in Central Europe anymore. It took us all by surprise. Certainly, as soon as the shock wore off, we convened our usual crisis team here within Colombia, and we address on each day the points that I've sort of set out. But I do think that these points, no one has a monopoly on good ideas or good solutions or the right solutions, and therefore I think as InterManager we owe it to ourselves and our colleagues and our crew members to sort of bounce ideas around and bounce learning and share knowledge, because it is all about that. And if we can do anything, if we can collaborate in any way, then we should certainly do so. And I think in the headings that I've set out here, there is huge scope for collaboration, so that we don't reinvent the wheel and expend needless effort where effort can be better focused together or by certain parties to this call. I've started with just excuse me, Dimitris. Sorry. I've started on our list with people and crew, and really maybe one way of doing this is to say, what we're experiencing. I think there is people and crew. It's certainly the crew members, and those are the crew members ashore as well as the crew members on board. And when I say crew members, I mean Russians and Ukrainians, and also people in the offices. And I think these are very different issues that we have to deal with, and handling our people in the offices, Russian and Ukrainian, and keeping them working together for the benefit of the vessels and each other has been a massive challenge for us, and certainly we found, and here again I sort of declare my interest insofar as my partner runs mental health support solutions. We found these mental health support organizations very useful, and of course they need to have Russian and Ukrainian psychologists on there. So we've engaged that in the office. I'm having meetings this afternoon with all of our Ukrainian colleagues, tomorrow with all of our Russian colleagues, chat sort of listening sessions, and then on Thursday, if it goes well, together. That's as far as the officers are concerned. But of course, on the vessels, where many of our officer corps are mixed, our officer contingents are mixed between Ukrainian and Russians. As this thing gets more nasty, as it certainly will, there will be problems. And I'd be interested to hear what. I do a CEO's video every other day to all of our vessels, and in writing, updating the crews, asking for reasonableness, asking for solidarity, asking for understanding, making the point that this is not a Russian war, it is a Russia war, primarily caused by one individual, and therefore most Russians that we meet are hugely sympathetic with their Ukrainian colleagues and brothers, have family members who are Ukrainians, 9 times out of 10 are married to Ukrainians, or vice versa. This is so far away from the majority of our Russian seafarers and colleagues, and that's a really important point that we're hammering home. And I wonder if others are doing the same thing, because the potential for conflict ashore and on board our vessels is there. And so certainly I'm going out every other day with a video to all of the vessels, and in writing explaining this. And of course they have access to the anger management and the anxiety management of the sort of the mental health support outlets. But anybody else from the managers, if you're doing anything differently, would be great to hear. Throw the floor open, really.
I'm looking for the hands up. Please use the facility on the Teams. While we are waiting, I think, Mark, because this is the item 1, crew and people, we are seeing some interesting developments through other NGOs, and the discussion about a ban on the Russians, which will have a huge effect on all of us. And my recent message, which you have probably seen already, I sent from one of our members who is facing it already in US. We need to think, how are we going to address this when there is no, Russians will not be allowed to travel, basically. But I've got a David Fernival and then Henrik Jensen. So David, over to you.
Yeah, while we're not doing video calls yet, as Mark is, we are of course communicating with the ships in writing frequently, and particularly ships where we have mixed complements on board, we are communicating with them via satellite and Microsoft Teams. So far, we see universal solidarity with our Russian crew, together with their Ukrainian colleagues. We've only had one single case of a single Ukrainian officer on board a Russian-dominated ship who wanted to get off because he felt pressure and he really wanted to go home and fight. Other than that, we see calm professionalism on the ships, which is a good sign. But as Mark rightly said, the pressure will ramp up, no doubt, if Putin continues to invade further.
Yes, I think that is that's what we're seeing. But of course, when this happened the first time in 2014 with the Crimea, we saw increasingly a split between mess rooms, where the Russians were watching in one the television in one mess room, the Ukrainians in the other, and of course you had to put a stop to that. It is a tinderbox to say the least. And I don't know whether, David, we've widened the internet and Wi-Fi access to all of the crew, because we can't differentiate between Russians, Ukrainians and the rest. So everybody, they had free and unlimited Wi-Fi anyway through COVID, but we've widened the bandwidth on all vessels to allow them to have this additional access. Of course, the Russians tend to get what source of information from Russian sources, and the Ukrainians from Ukraine, very, very different and very, very different stories. So, you know, the question then is, well, do you restrict certain communication lines? But you're playing a very dangerous game there. So again, I don't know what others have found or discovered, but you know, we certainly believe widening the Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi access is right because they're desperate for information. But should restrictions be put on it? I don't know is the answer.
I'm back, and then Henrik and Natalie. David Sonneval?
Well, I can just confirm to Mark, yeah, we have given access to all ships with Ukrainian and Russian crew on board, unlimited, well, limited to the sense that technicalities allow, but free access to internet. We haven't thought about censoring certain news outlets, of course, but you're right that there will be a difference in perspective being portrayed, and we need to get that balance right.
Okay, thank you. Henrik?
Yes. Hello, good morning. So I mean, we are Danica, just the background. We have about 1,500 seafarers from Ukraine and 50 office staff in Odessa, yeah. And so far we have no reports about our seafarers being injured or their families being injured, but of course it's a serious situation. I can say we are assisting we cannot assist much inside Ukraine to get outside of Ukraine, but as soon as our seafarers' families and office staff is out of Ukraine, we assist them to come here to Hamburg. And we have the first batch arriving this afternoon from Bucharest. With the situation, I mean, on board, I can also confirm, same as David and Mark said, we had only one case so far where there was maybe a conflict due to this crisis here. But I think as it's escalating now and they are really starting to killing civilians also, this might really change. And I think this is something we need to be aware of. I heard this about censoring out news outlets. I think this is not a possible version when we have full access to internet. They'll find some places anyway. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. So we are staying in contact with all our crew as best we can. I had yesterday, as Mark also said, now a morning meeting with our staff in Odessa. Yeah. And then they're sitting all at home, of course. But in the middle of the meeting, there were then sirens going, and everybody has to run for the shelters. So it is a severe situation. I never imagined that it could be that I had to sit remotely and talk to my office staff running in the shelters. And so it is, and but we here I have some contacts also that I mean, and right now I'm in contact with one wife who's sitting with a baby 8 years old in a train stuck between Kiev and the Polish border, and apparently the tracks are blocked by Russian military. So it is really serious situation. And I think we can only try to comfort our crew and all this as we do and help them as much as possible. But change the political situation, of course, we have no chances to do this. What else I can say? At the moment, we have the next question comes now up with the allotments. So far, we understand the Ukrainian banks are working normally, except of course the areas where there's war. And but also all ATMs and cash, the banks are out of cash in Ukraine simply because of logistic reasons. They cannot get money onto their branches and so on. But debit cards and credit cards are still fully working. And then we have the situation.
Just on that, Henrik. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's it. It's you know, we're more in a way we're more concerned about our Russian seafarers and getting paid because And how are you? Because Ship Money's openly said, you know, Ship Money and there's other cards available that they will also be affected. So it's not we're holding on to the money and saying if you want living expenses, then go to certain rendezvous points that we've set up, Poland, Romania, Ukraine, whatever. But there's no obvious fix, is there, on the money side? But if someone has got an obvious fix,
I just come to the Russians now, actually. So the Russians, I mean, first of all, the allotments maybe for us, we have only 300 Russians, yeah, and they cannot be paid. I mean, these from our German, we have 2 German banks here, and I spoke to both of them again this morning, and they say do not send monies to Russia. We have the, I mean, apparently our Russian seafarers, there's one bank which is on the sanction list now, or the SWIFT sanctions list, which is called Alpha Bank, and they're giving all the seafarers the standard answer that this is not everything is perfect in Russia. The problem is it is your German bank who's in financial troubles because of the crisis in Ukraine that created in Ukraine, or your German employer is gone bankrupt, and they're all getting this standard answer. So this is a little bit what we are up to there. And I spoke to both of our banks here in Germany. So most of you maybe know the famous Nordbank and the Commerzbank here in Hamburg. And both of them say some banks are on the sanction list directly, some are on this SWIFT sanction list, and the rest of the banks in Russia have now such a poor credit rating that even if the banks could transfer money to them, they cannot do because they're not allowed to do business with banks with such poor credit ratings. So that's we're up to. And both banks says don't try to send money to Russia because your money, maybe the banks is open today, or they say it will pass. It looks like it's passing through today, but it will see 2-3 days in the intermediate bank in the US, and something else will happen in the meantime, and it will take a long time before you get your money back again. So that's the situation. And at the moment we say we cannot transfer, then we also heard from Ship Money, and Ship Money is helpful at the moment with this, that they could get a Visa card, and the relatives could get a Visa card. And the trick there is apparently that the monies then are in a US bank, and it is not a transfer between 2 banks because the Visa card the relatives will get in Russia is then connected to the American bank. If that's going to work, I'm not sure, but there's a logistic problem now, is that due to the transport embargo, all the courier services stopped sending packages to Russia. So that we are looking at the moment.
Henrik, thanks for that. I'm taking notes with our members who are dealing with money. If I could ask all of us, be short in our speeches because we've got 60 people on a call, and if everybody is taking 5 minutes, we will be here till 24. I appreciate that we've got a lot to say, but the line is long. So I'll move now to Natalie, then is Hambali, and then is Khalil. Natalie, over to you.
Thanks, Kuba, and good morning to all. I just really want to reiterate, I think the point that's been made about the current good will amongst crew to be friendly with each other is going to deteriorate drastically in the next few days without any question. As people start to hear about their families being affected, that's when I think it's going to become much more fractious on board. We have a meeting this afternoon. I know Kuba's attending across the international organisations, and we will be feeding some of it back. But one of the things I was thinking of doing was when we had the situation of the migrants, we produced some. I think there were some concerns at the time that the seafarers were getting attacked by migrants coming onto the vessels and how they could potentially, calm the situation down and stuff like that. So we might be able to quickly do some work to try and reflect on that guidance and modify it just in terms of how we maintain professional conduct on board at a difficult time for all. So I'll have a look at that. And if anybody from one of the companies here is interested in reflecting on it with me, please let me know, and I can send a copy of that to you, and we can try to see how we can get that out quickly. Thank you.
I think, Natalie, that the mistake here would be to villainize all Russians and to ban all Russians. I think if we do that, we've got a major problem, quite unjust, I hasten to add, but a major problem on board our vessels and operationally, because it is not. I haven't met a Russian in our organisation who has sympathy for this. And
no, I totally agree, but I think I can only put myself into this, but if I found out that a member of my family had suddenly been attacked at home, it's human nature to start to react on board. And where we've got mixed compliments, it is going to get more difficult. So it's absolutely not about villainizing. It's very much about trying to maintain a certain degree of professional decorum in a very difficult situation.
Yes, and that's why what we're trying to do is to enable our Russians to have an outlet to express their support and solidarity as well. And I think that's why I think whatever NGOs, Kuba, you're dealing with, or whatever the message is from InterManager, I am of the belief that we need to support all our seafarers, including our Russians, in this very difficult time, and that will enable the teams on board the vessels to work together in solidarity. I think if we start pointing the finger too much at Russians, we're going to almost encourage this on board our vessels. I think it's really these nuances are very, very careful, because most of our Russians really are as confused and as worried and as desperate as our Ukrainians. They don't know how to deal with this, and the more we Russian bash, the more you almost feed the situation or the potential situation between them, especially, as you quite rightly say, Natalie, when it starts getting nasty, as it inevitably will. So I do think this is a very careful message that we should get out there. And I don't know what other people feel, but I certainly feel that the Russians also need support, and as much support, but also need support.
No, I agree with you, Mark, and I think the problem is how to find this very, very, very fine balance, because we are hearing from Ukrainians now, for example, why you are not doing anything with Russians. It should be Russians themselves, citizens of Russia, to get rid of Putin. We can't do that. You Russians can do that. And they are actually, if we are being seen to support Russians, it looks like we are against the Ukrainians. So it's an extremely fine line, I suppose. But Hambali, you've got your hand up. Go for it, please. Hambali, you are muted if you are trying to talk to us. We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah. So thanks, Cuba. The messages that you sent out in the last week were quite helpful in dealing with the situation that we find ourselves in. We don't have many Russians and Croatians on board the vessel, but when the incident happened, the first thing we did was to actually find out whether we have Russians and Croatians on board at the same time. Luckily enough, we don't. So that probably has helped us in a lot how to handle the whole scenario. But the challenge we have quite a number of people, the Russians and Croatians, that are due to offsign the vessel. So they are due for their leave. Now the challenge is transporting them back home, particularly with the current situations in both the two countries. We are looking at, okay, with this scenario, what happens? How do we deal with the transportation? What are those risks that we need to look out for? For example, the Croatians, I understand, probably they would have to go to Poland, and then from Poland move to Croatia. But that border crossing as well.
Ukraine, Hambali. Sorry, you keep saying Croatia.
No, Ukrainians.
Ukraine.
Sorry. Yeah, Ukrainians. They will need to go to Poland before they cross over into Ukraine. Now, what are those risks? I don't know whether any one of us have actually transported their crew member.
I think there are lines. I think it would be useful, Kuba, if InterManager on the issue of repatriation could say, right, how do we? What are the routes for Ukrainians? And what are the routes for Russians in and out? Because there was in our meeting this morning, there was we were talking about, well, how do we rotate Russian crew where Russians are being banned and airlines are being banned? Well, there are airlines that are flying in and out of Russia, and it is possible to rotate Russian crew. Ukraine, more difficult land routes, etc. But I think that would be really useful that we pool our knowledge. Of course, the situation can change, but on repatriations and rotations, that's we're also asking as well. I don't know whether other are doing this, that our crews delay rotations. So those on board of all nationalities willingly delay rotations, because we haven't got the replacement Ukrainians and possibly Russians to rotate, and therefore, of course, we can find replacement nationalities, but it helps in the immediate future if rotations are delayed and crew contracts are extended. I don't know whether other people are doing that too, but that's a solution just in the next 3 or 4 weeks, whilst the situation becomes hopefully clearer.
Bali, would you like to
Yeah,
comment on yourself?
Yeah, so the last one is the internet access. Yes, we have unlimited internet access to all the crew members, but a bit of fear that possibly the Russians or the Ukrainians may start using that as a platform for propaganda as well, and the fear of the ship being identified as that source of propaganda, and of course having challenge with the international authorities. So that's another area that we are looking at. I don't know whether, so we've banned some sites. There are some sites that we specifically were able to ban, but I don't know whether anyone has done something similar, so that at least that we'll be able to share. Yeah. Thanks.
It would be great if you could share those sites with us, and maybe we can consider what we do with those sites, Hambali. That would be useful. We just on another issue on crew, and I throw it out there. We've set up rendezvous sites in certain of our offices in St. Petersburg, because this is a Russian problem too. It's St. Petersburg, Poland, Romania, and in Ukraine. I think there's 5 or 6 rendezvous sites too. I'll pass them on to Kuba, where we've put personnel to assist the families with accommodation and money, families of our seafarers who come out. I'm very happy to extend those facilities to others who would be interested, and equally we are also setting up a fund for immediate cash handouts to families who need just to get over the next few days. So if you're interested in taking that forward, and of course it will be mainly the bigger managers, let's do something together, to facilitate that. And there may be other rendezvous sites that some of our other members can offer that we can all support as well. But I will forward to Kuba after this our rendezvous sites. You're all welcome to pass those rendezvous sites on to your crew members' families, where they'll get help and financial assistance if they need it. I would also be in favour of setting up some form of unofficial fund that we can actually administer between the few of us who have a huge interest there, that we can administer without too much bureaucracy and regulation attached. Just let's get money into people's hands who need it, and get help into people's hands who need it. But if David or anybody is willing to join me on that, then anyway, our site, our rendezvous will be available to your people if you want it.
Yeah, I'll discuss that, Mark, and get back to you shortly.
Yeah, but I think we can do something really worthwhile here, and it's families. What I'm hearing, it's not the families of seafarers on board the vessels, because they tend to have access there. It's the families of the seafarers who are staying behind to fight, who have sent their families out. They just haven't anything. And the people of Poland are doing an amazing job, but actually getting hold of these people and directing them to accommodation and putting a few €100 in their hand to get by through the next few days is really important, without too much bureaucracy. I think we have to look after our own, and of course it goes without saying that this is a humanitarian effort. No one's going to be seeking to take advantage or establish relationships with people. It's just about, I don't care whether it's a BSM office or a CSM office that's handling these families, but let's just be there for these people. But that'd be great, David. If you and whoever else, please let me know.
On this note, actually, we are being contacted by charities who are asking where to direct money. So the money is available now. I'll have some other meetings today with charities wearing the other TK Foundation hat, obviously, and being contacted through US. They are very willing to actually send money. Some money will be directed to transport and some for accommodation and so on and so forth. But I would love to see the handling agents, if you wish, and why not to use our resources already on the ground, the resources which we know, we trust, and so on and so forth. So we've got David Petrejko on the call as well, because David is already channeling some of these issues as well with that. But okay, fine, thank you. Khalil, over to you.
Thank you, Kuba. I'll be quick. Couple of points. On the travel, we have identified Istanbul, Dubai, and Doha for Russian. I think these lines are still open for Russia, and so that is one. For Ukrainian, I think Poland, but there was an issue that we have also raised, is to do with the PNI cover. Are they covered until they get home? A lot of Ukrainians they are from Odessa. Odessa is all the way the other side of Poland, so there are I mean, physical difficulties when it comes to that. We sent this question to the PNIs. They don't have a clear answer themselves. I mean, this is something new for everyone. So that is something that as companies we have to consider. The other point, I go back to what Natalie and Mark was mentioning. I think this is a very big and serious test for us as maritime community. We should not get sucked into political side of it. Although all our seafarers are human, they will get affected. If the families are in trouble at home, they will be. I mean, that is something that every human will be going through. But as seafaring community internationally, we have been saying that we are international. All along, we are international, and the Russian seafarers should not be, I mean, villainized and all that. So it is a big test also for us. I can see this last message from Cuba half an hour ago. It's beginning that internationally people are kind of targeting the seafarers. We should be very careful, and it is a big test for us when it comes to that point. Thank you.
Totally agree.
Absolutely, and it's good that we are talking actually, because we see what is the sense, where we come from, and I'm delighted to see the unity actually. What Mark suggested, people are basically backing up, I believe. Petros and then David Petrejko. Petros, over to you.
Yes, hi all. We have mainly Ukrainians. Right now we don't have any Russian on board. We had some crew changes and we use the roads from Romania and Poland. At the beginning, we started Moldova, but soon appeared that is not a solution. But also these two routes from Poland and Romania, you don't know on a daily basis if will be open, if buses will operate. And we have some crews that stay even now in these two countries waiting to find ways to bring them in. Definitely we cannot take out people for crewing, and we had a couple of cases that crew members Ukrainians that they don't have reached their contract. They wanted to come back to the country to fight. Of course, we accommodated that. So it's not easy to bring them in at any day. It's situation changing any moment. From our side, it will be good to find out any ways to bring money in the country, just to help, as Mark mentioned, families. Banks, even though operate in Ukraine, all seamen ask to keep the salaries because there is no cash, so there is no sense to send money there. So it will be good if we find solutions to send some money cash money or whatever to help families. Still, we haven't found that. Yeah, that's it.
Petros,
so let me just.
sorry,
Mhm,
Kuba, you go.
Marco. No, Marco, go.
No, I think, you know, when Petros talks about these issues, I feel sorry insofar as each and every one of us is having to struggle to cope and find the answers to this. The answers to all of these problems lie on this platform. And, you know, we've all, some of us have, luckily, more resources to throw at this. And, you know, I really would like at the end of this call, Kuba, for InterManager to be the depository of all of our experience on an ongoing basis, so that when Petros wants to know, right, what are the entry points to repatriate Russian crew? What are the entry points to retract? What are the, how do I pay my crew? How do I get money to my, that we have answers in a central repository or depository or whatever it's called, and that BSMV ships, CSM, and the larger ones who have more resources give that information to you. And if we need to get a secretary to employ a secretary in an extra secretary and InterManager to handle this inflow of information, then we do that. But you know, I think it's crazy. And correct me, sorry if I'm suggesting that this is not a task you willingly and want to do, Petros, but it's crazy that we're all going around these reinventing the wheel 1,000 times and probably getting it wrong in a lot of occasions, but when a simple call or question would do. So, you know, I think Khalil is absolutely right. This is a test for us. It's a test for our internationalism and also our collaboration. But it's very, you know, having InterManager coordinate this, I think is the right thing to do, and I think would help us as well. We know all the answers.
Yes,
Mark,
indeed,
my question here
that's
is,
correct, because you see now we put all these some solutions, and
Yeah.
that's the benefit and beauty, if I may say, in this time of our team. Thanks, Kuba. I'm out.
Yeah, okay, thank you. No, obviously we have to decide how we want this information to be distributed, because at the moment I am spatting out whenever I've got something at you, and I feel terrible because there was one day when I sent 5 messages to you, and I'm thinking maybe it should be another way around, where we've got the library, and whenever you want, you go there and you check both ways. Obviously, at the moment I can't promise them one of messages coming, and sometimes I've got nothing. Whenever there is something new coming, I have to go and ask for your assistance. So there is this sort of communication. We do have a website actually, and I'm more than happy to populate that whenever there is something. I've already sent a message yesterday with links as far as Poland is concerned, how to get families from Ukraine out, who is dealing with it, and so on and so forth, was one. Now, to answer Petro's question, people are getting out of Ukraine. Poland is very ready to do that. We've got 9 points where people, 8 points border checkpoints, and another one is a virtual one. So the people can come out. The problem is Ukraine is not allowing cars. So people have to abandon cars on the Ukrainian side and walk. And at one stage there was 72 hours waiting. So imagine if you are a family with kids, not in a car, because you have to abandon your car and walk. That doesn't make sense, you see. So that's where the choking blocks are on the Ukrainian side. So the Polish government is actually working with them, trying to streamline those things. As soon as they get to the Polish border, there is a system where they are being distributed to all over the places, and people are actually coming and so on and so forth. So the problem is to get Ukrainians to the Polish border, and they struggle. And obviously, as we progress day on day, it's not getting better because the Russians are closing. So that's what we can do. And on the Ukrainian side, that would be interesting if we could establish through our Odessa offices, maybe, if they could help us how to handle to Romanian and Polish border, for example, because outside we are in control, sort of, but within we are not, Ukraine. I've got David, and then I've got Petros again. David Patrico.
Thanks, Kuba, and thanks, Mark, for inviting us in here. Very serious situation, and we're very much on side the Nautical Institute with this professional approach. obviously we have members who are Russian and Ukraine, and very concerned for them all and their families. We don't have a lot of resources, but we are very good disseminators of information. So just offer anything that the Nautical Institute can do to disseminate information, whether it's social media, whether it's webinar, whether it's published, anything that we can do to help, we certainly will. And just a mention that I don't know whether it's how public it is, but we've been approached to take away the qualifications of Russian DP operators, dynamic position operators. We are not doing that at this stage. We do not think it'll have the required effect or intended effect. So just to let everybody know that. Thanks again.
Kuba, may I ask a question?
Thank you. I don't know who you are because I don't see your hand. So I've got 51 people.
You can look
So
up
put
my
your
smile. You can look
no,
up my smile face instead.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know who I'm talking to. Put your yellow hand up, please, then I will see you. Petros now.
Trying.
And then Ralph.
Kuba, about the ways out, actually, of Ukraine. I'm talking for a male that is prohibited, I think, from 18 years old to 60. They have called to the army, so actually are prohibited to leave the country. Yes, families, children, ladies, yes, of course, can do.
But I was surprised to hear that 170
We've lost you, Kuba.
We lost you, Kuba.
males are actually. How about now? 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 1, 1. Okay, so the Polish government reported that there were 170 nationalities leaving Ukraine, and these males are allowed. So Pakistanis, Georgians, Russians, and so on, so from Ukraine are allowed to Poland from Ukraine. Only Ukraine national males are not allowed. So take this into the mix. So there is a lot of people. 100 came from Ukraine to Poland. Altogether, over 4 years, it's 4 days, it's 250,000 already left Ukraine to Poland. So it's not only ladies and kids. There are some males from other nationalities than Ukrainians, which are allowed, but they clog the border as well because they have to be checked, double check and triple check. But that's my answer to now Ral and then Svein.
Thanks, Kuba, and it's great to see so many in the community rallying around with these great initiatives. I just want to pick up on the point that David mentioned there about being approached to cancel professional qualifications of seafarers, and it's very alarming on top of everything else that we would like these things are being talked about. I mean, for example, we have a number of course certificates in progress, some of which are no doubt in Russian seafarers' names. Then there was the report from the UK government last night, which I'm still trying to figure out the ambiguity of what they mean by operated. I mean, are we really talking about any vessels with Russian seafarers on board? And I just wanted to see if anybody's got any thoughts or guidance, if this is either something that's being talked about or is in fact potentially on the horizon, because it seems to me to be extremely irresponsible to be going that route. As to your point, Mark, you know, seafarers of any nationality don't have any impact on world events to that extent. So is this something that we see being discussed and is a real possibility?
We might have a John with us on a call and he might comment on it. But first, Svein, over to you. And John, if you've got any answers to Ral, could you come after Svein, please?
Yeah. Hi, Kuba. Hi, Kuba. I just had a question regarding the Ukrainians. We have Ukrainians on board, especially our offshore vessel, our drill ships. And we were told that they would not be allowed, some of them at least, they would not be allowed to leave the country, while others said there are ways and means of getting out. So then the question is, then of course they might have issues if they escape from the country. So how should we act upon it? We have already, of course, been told to keep their money, not to send it to their banks or anything. But how are we going to, should we start already looking at finding replacements when they are having the schedule? I don't know what, there are other opinions on this, but we have, at least for those of our guys which is on board the ships, which we can speak to freely, they have said that if they go home, they will not be able to get back again. So there was another guy asking the same question. I had some problems to get in and out there, so sorry.
Okay, thank you. I understand that. John is not coming on, I see. Wojciech, you are next. And Svein, I'll try to answer your question in a second. Wojciech?
I think Svein also touched a very sensitive topic, which of course we should not talk about at this stage of this crisis, because the most important is to help the Ukrainian and Russian seafarers, and there is no discussions. But we can still expect in the long run. We don't know how fast and when the conflict can end, so we can have a massive competition on the market, because the positions which can be closed on the Russian or Ukrainian, of course, mostly on the Ukrainians, because here we have the key problem. It will generate a massive competition, because every company has to run the shipping activities. We should not maybe talk about this at this stage when the people are dying, but it can generate massive competitions, a lot of manning challenges for the companies. I know that the companies are already working on emergency solutions with the manning of the boats, just in the worst case scenario. It is a very, very sensitive topic now, but as I said, we should also try to stabilize and maybe make it in the internal promotion, freeze the employment for the poor Ukrainian seafarers, that they will be able to come back as soon as the borders are open. We should not forget about this. So just to keep, because I have permanent employees, I want to try to keep them in the fleet. If they can't come back, I should still try to hold the planning in the way that they are always welcome back, but all the companies can face these massive issues in the longer scenario. When I speak to colleagues who has hundreds of the Ukrainians on board, and they still don't know what to do now. What will be in another 4 weeks, yes, or another 2 months, so it can be another challenge. But as I said, at this stage we should focus on the helping of the all Ukrainians, especially, of course, and Russians as well. We are not guilty for all this conflict, but this is what we face. Thank you.
I think Svein's point, though, is for planning purposes, if the Ukrainian seafarers leave the vessels and go home, you're not going to have them replaced. I mean, that's the reality, isn't it? You've got to either try, which is why we're trying to encourage our seafarers to extend their contracts and extend their rotations, just to get us over. I mean, who knows what's around the corner here? If this goes on for years, we've got it's a very different landscape ahead of us as to if it stabilizes but I think we're certainly planning on the basis that the seafarers who leave are not going to be replaced by Ukrainians, because they can't be. And we've got to go to. We'll check it. We have to look at other sources. So there's no doubt, and that will have an effect. Of course, it will. I mean, we've got to be practical as well.
What we hear from them is that many of them really want to go home now to meet their family and things like this. So that is an issue.
Of course, you would.
No, absolutely. Obviously, there was a message from Henrik as well, that not all of them, those who want to go, then we have to go. But some of them want to go to other places, like, for example, Warsaw or Istanbul, and then meet with the families extracted from the Ukraine. So we've got two scenarios here, and we need to work on it. Now, John is online. So, John, could you give us maybe answers to Svein's questions and questions you heard before?
I mean, Cuba, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Cuba?
Yes.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, so I assume he's referring to this Department for Transport letter issued by the UK Department of Transport Maritime Coast Guard Agency. So typically, they may not be the best shipping people around that wrote it, but owned, controlled, chartered, or operated by Owned is simple to understand. Control can be ownership control. Chartered, we understand. Operated by, in some circles, means that you provide the commercial instructions to the vessels, i.e. the post-fixture operation of the vessel. That's how I read it. But it could have been written differently. So basically, if you're involved in the commercial operation of the vessels, you shouldn't do it.
Okay, John, thank you for that.
This is my personal opinion. It can be interpreted in many ways, the way it is written.
Is there someone getting clarity on that? Because you know, from an ex-lawyer's perspective, I read it in the widest possible sense, and you know, we've got to take it a worst case basis. I agree totally with John that this is just an appallingly drafted knee-jerk message, but we need clarity, because it's a massive impact.
But on the other hand, it does not appear to have taken legal effect, this letter. This appears to be a statement of intent, which is not yet anchored in English law. Because we have ships trading. We have ships trading to the UK now, and we have not been affected.
I'm taking it on board. Obviously, we've got a meeting this afternoon, and we will have a MCA representative there. So I will be asking questions, and hopefully we'll have a solution for that, or at least explanation. I've got then Erikos and Milan. Wojtek, are you still hand up, or is it just heritage hand? Okay, thank you. So Erikos and then Milan.
Thank you, Captain Kuba. I just wanted to give a quick update from a payment provider point of view, because we're processing a lot of payments globally on the behalf of the maritime industry. And so far, what we see, at least for Ukraine, it's that payments are flowing through. For Russia, up to yesterday, payments were still flowing through. There were some limitations around the VTB bank that was being sanctioned. And of course, you've got also Sberbank that is going to be fully sanctioned by the 26th of March. So there's a wind down period. But what we see with a lot of the customers, so all of you've been talking about how to get the seafarers back home. We've got a few customers that have the opposite. The seafarers, when they're going onshore, they don't want to go back home, and they want to have a way to have their funds, and they're waiting for their families to actually come home. So this is happening in Hamburg, Antwerp, and in Rotterdam. And the question that has been raised to us by customers is, how can you actually assist with these elements, and what solution can you provide to them? Because their main concern is being able, of course, to feed their family, and their second immediate concern is to be able to feed their family tomorrow also, and to house them. So we've been working on these elements. We're happy to share what we're doing. This is not focused on a sales pitch, but we're focusing on these elements. Now, the other component we're doing as a payment provider is, because we are focusing a lot on compliance, we've invited our MLRO. His name is Milan Maluk, who is the next on the call. And I would like for him actually to share what we're doing and how we're assisting our customers from a compliance standpoint, and the resources we're putting behind this to be able to provide the latest updates on these components. So Milan, if you want to maybe take over.
Erikos, before Milan comes on, I'm just bearing in mind time is short. Is your payment facility, is it, if I use the word bomb-proof, it's the wrong terminology, but is it capable of withstanding the various sanctions on the facilitating banks? I mean, that's what we need to know, because we're not in a position of using ship money or Mar Trust or this or that. We're looking at various options at the moment. We want to be, if we go down one route now, and it will be a quick decision, because we want to facilitate this. Is yours the solution, and will it withstand the test of time, i.e. further sanctions, further disruption to the facilitating bank system, etc.? That's really what I need to know, and I'm sure others have the same.
Yeah. So I will let Milan elaborate on that component, just to explain a little bit the backbone of what we are offering. Today, we offer a payment account to the seafarers, and this is based in Ireland and with Barclays Bank. So this payment account can actually hold funds. There's no limit in terms of the amount of funds it can hold. It's a proper account. And associated to that, then you have a card, a prepaid card that you can use. But this payment account becomes really critical from what you asked, Mark, because the question is, you know, at what moment in time will the Russian seafarer be sanctioned? Because at this, the emphasis of all the sanctions are around crippling the institution that is driving this invasion and not the Russian individual itself. So our solution will stand the proof of time until that level. If that level hits, our solution will also not prove won't be fully bomb-proof. But until that moment, it will be fairly robust. But Milan, maybe you can elaborate a bit more on that.
That's very helpful. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Milan, if we could be very short, please. We don't need now education of the nitty-gritties of your system. What we really need is to know whether you can do it or not. And then if we know and everybody is interested, then we can always reach out to you. But otherwise, please not monopolize the time, because we've got other issues here. And what we need to know is, yes, we can, no, we can't. That would be really great. Thank you.
Okay, so Erikos, answer your question, because he's right. The sanctions, international sanctions, and there are many of those, because each country is issuing sanctions against Russia and against Russian aggression. They are targeting at the moment individuals who are in power, oligarchs, we heard of that, and the president of Russia, and then also the allies of Russia, so Belarusian politicians. And then they are targeting banks, because the banks are financing the invasion of on Ukraine. So at the moment, the sanctions are covering those organizations and individuals. The worst case scenario is that there will be a blanket sanctions on Russia and potentially on Ukraine if the Ukraine is annexed by Russia, like Crimea was back in 2014. So that's the huge risk. It is the worst case scenario, and is the very the hated approach. And European Union never done that before. Only US sanctioned or placed blanket sanctions on countries, but there would be a disaster. And the whole countries are trying to avoid disaster, but that's the worst case scenario.
Okay,
one more.
How quickly can this be set up? If we want to cover 2,000 seafarers, how quickly can this? Do we have to go through the rigmarole of all of the opening of account checks, etc., or can this be done fairly quickly?
The checks need to be done, but we increase the resources in the teams to make sure we can cope, because we have an influx of requests like that, and we understand the actual humans behind this and the torture they're going through. So we are expediting the onboarding of crew members and the customers as well.
Okay.
Just one thing I want to mention very quickly, just to finish it off, that we are preparing a webinar on sanctions, which will be running in an hour. So we'll share the link to that webinar, and that will provide you with a comprehensive update on the sanctions, because there are lots of implications, especially in maritime industry. So I would share the link with you here.
That would be great, indeed. That's what we are looking for. Okay, before I let Greg speak, Mark, we've got 2 minutes left, and I'm just checking our agenda, and I think we covered everything. I'm just concerned IT. Is there anything else, if you could think, on IT? Because insurance, we did sanctions, finance, ops, maybe more on ops, and crew and people, I think we did. So
I mean, just on IT, just to let you know what we're doing. Obviously, our officers in Ukraine and in Russia, we are ensuring that they are ever more cyber attack proof, to the extent you ever can be, and also ensuring the removal of information to more secure locations. And I think that's in common with most of us, isn't it? And that's a sensible thing. That's a sensible thing to do.
We did get information from the MD of our office in Odessa that last night the internet and telephone connectivity was going to be cut. It didn't happen, and we still have internet connectivity there, but that is a threat we can't ignore. And obviously, if you can get access to any sort of individual satellite telephone to an office, that would help.
But I think we are all using Office 365, for example, and Microsoft is being attacked at the moment. So we all have to have a contingency plans, I suppose. And I'm hearing it. I can see how the internet itself fluctuates because it's getting overloaded. People are really locked in. But anyhow, Greg, over to you. But be quick, please.
Yeah, very quickly. I sort of echo what Marcos was just saying. One of the challenges that we're all going to face with these prepaid cards is logistically, we're now being told there may be restrictions on placing FedEx and UPS assignments. So there is actually out, and this isn't a pitch, a virtual card that can be set up within 48 hours for crew members, which would allow them to have a virtual account, which is similar to a physical card, to remove the logistics barrier that we're going to be facing in the next couple of weeks trying to get cards to ships. So just wanted to add that in finally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Mark, it's 12 o'clock. Would you like to close?
Look, I think we could go on for another 2 hours, couldn't we? And I think everyone's taken away something hopefully helpful. I do end where I started. I think it would be very good if Kuba InterManager could be a depository or repository of key areas of information, so that the smaller members can contact you, and the bigger ones actually say, look, what have you got on this? What have you got on that? And that could be kept updated. Things like money and the various options. This virtual card sounds terrific as well. These rendezvous points, I will provide rendezvous points to Kuba. Whoever needs them, please use them. And that goes for help and money fund. Maybe some of the I must say some of the bigger members, all of the members could perhaps contact Kuba if they want to contribute to that fund, and we can look at setting that up to get money to people without too many questions asked. And I think as InterManager, what are we saying on this point? Because I think it's a really important point. This is not a war. This is not a Russian war. It is a Russia war, and we've got to look after the interests and worries and sensitivities and shame of our Russian seafarers and colleagues as well, and keep them on board and keep them together. Because if we do that, we're going to make the situation on board our vessels a lot easier. If we villainize them, ban on all Russians and talking in this sort of terminology, we're going to have a real major problem on our hands. And that's not in anybody's interest, and certainly not in our Russian seafarers' interests either. And I think Khalil hit the nail on the head. We're an international business, and we have to stay in international business with international perspective, albeit sympathising hugely with what's going on the ground.
Mark, my final question is, I think there is a lot happening, and you suggested originally that we meet again on Thursday. Technically, I really doubt we could. I would suggest that we do the round robins, or maybe I will actually do the daily updates every evening, send a message to whatever has happened, and encourage you guys to not be pulled on questions, but whenever you solve something, copy me in so I can build a repository here. And we've got our Wednesday meeting next Wednesday, so we've got 7 days from now where we could devote actually 60-minute meeting to Ukraine. And I'm not inviting anybody. Actually, we had a guest speaker from Ukraine, but he's not able to connect. So I would suggest then I set up now a meeting for next Wednesday, and then we will update in a form of this kind of round robin discussions. But otherwise, it's all on emails, and we all work, because I believe your calendar is extremely busy as well. So I thank 50 people actually devoting 60 minutes today, being on a call and waiting now to fulfill what Mark was asking for. Whenever you
have a think about Kuba, have a think about that, because we certainly every day, weekend or not, we're having our crisis team meeting. This thing unfolds by the minute, and my suggestion of this meeting twice weekly wasn't to create a sort of administrative headache. Simply put the invite out there. Those who can attend, keep to those various 7 points, and someone will always glean something from it. I don't think it needs to be a formal one. Otherwise, I think events will overtake us. And if we wait till next Wednesday, it's going to be a very different landscape. And some of us will have made very wrong decisions for the wrong reasons in that time when we could have perhaps steered. Just a suggestion. I would throw it I would try and do it every 2 days, and do it that way, because people will get the information more readily. But you decide. That's just my suggestion. I'm certainly we're certainly prioritizing this over everything else.
No, that's fine. I will set it up, but maybe we can do that a bit later, because now we are not catching everybody. Remember, if we do that one way, then the US is on, and then we haven't got Hong Kong, Singapore, and vice versa. So these people are then saying then we are very Eurocentric, for example. So I'm getting a stick for that as well. But okay, I'll work out on this. Maybe next meeting will be Thursday or maybe Friday. Let's do Friday. Give us 3 days and do it Friday, and we will have the week. Yeah. So a Friday afternoon, not too late for Cyprus, but also allowing US to wake up and be with us. Although we do have Americans on this call who actually woke up 3 o'clock in the morning. It's so important for them as well, like for everybody else, I suppose. Okay, guys, we're 5 minutes behind. Thank you very, very much.
Take care.
And I'm waiting for you, looking forward to your messages. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Kuba. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.